Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. It wasn't the most pleasant press conference in the world. I think we can all admit that. I'm not going to write the guy off. I understand that he was nervous and that he was fumbling all over his words and it got uncomfortable at times. But just because it didn't go as great as maybe they anticipated, it doesn't mean that he flat out doesn't understand how to grow players and how to coach players. I'm not writing the guy off. It's just that simple. We will say that from the jump. I am not going to write this guy off. Chip Kelly was smooth as hell when it comes to cameras in his face and microphones in his face, and that didn't result in winning championships. Doug Peterson sucked. Doug Peterson was the worst listen after every game, during every week. It blew my mind how he could not find a way to give you good answers. He won a Super Bowl. So seriously, just because it was quivering of the mouth, if you will, I can't quickly state that this automatically means you are doomed. Now, with that being said, yeah, I'm skeptical. I think there's something to be said about the moment being a little big. He looked like a 39-year-old. The difference between him and Doug is older. Doug is more of a veteran. Although, Nick Sirianni, a lot of coaching. For 39 years old, that's the thing. With these younger guys, they still have 10, 12 years of experience in the NFL because, well, you get inserted into these professional organizations at a younger age. But Doug, he played the game. He was involved in the game. He was on the sidelines for these games. Like, he was a bigger part of NFL football that made me feel more comfortable about him, even though at the time we all said, Who? Doug Peterson? It's just crazy because it feels we are in this new era of Eagles football where it's a dumpster fire. So when you see that, you automatically relate it to the new Jeffrey Lurie era. Everyone likes to date back to Andy Reid and Chip Kelly and Doug Peterson and use those as somewhat of a history for Jeffrey Lurie and his hiring. And I think that's fair. I've done that multiple times. That's why I gave Nick Sirianni a benefit of the doubt, because whether you like to admit it or not, Andy Reid's a fantastic coach. Doug Peterson won you a Super Bowl. There were hires along the Jeffrey Lurie era that should have satisfied you as a fan. I do have this gut feeling, though, that this is a new version of Jeffrey Lurie. I don't know if it was hiring Chip Kelly and allowing him to have all the power, and since that blew up in his face, he's nervous to do that again, or it's because he tasted success and he doesn't know what to do with that type of feeling or that power, and now he's struggling because he wants that back so badly. It was such a tease, and he wants it back so badly that now he's making rash decisions and poor decisions so he can keep his fingerprints involved and he could be the one that's making all the say and all the moves because he thinks he knows what it takes to get back all the way at the top of the mountain, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case. So I know we like to date it back to Lurie pre-Super Bowl and give him the benefit of the doubt because the track record shows decent hires. This feels different, though. It doesn't feel the same. Now, we are broadcasting live from the Manscaped Man Cave. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BROD at manscaped.com. I didn't hear anything where it stood out to me that's why they picked him. When you hear someone speak, you would think eventually there would be a tone or there would be a message or it would just be off of his demeanor. It's like, yes, that's it right there. I see what they saw. I know what they were thinking. I got it. I saw their vision with Nick Sirianni. I never got that. Now, here's the alternative. Dan Campbell, the whole bite your knees or get after the knees or whatever the hell he said with the Detroit Lions, you don't want it to get to that extent either, right? Could you imagine if we got a Dan Campbell press conference? So it has to be somewhere in between Nick Sirianni's nervousness and Dan Campbell thinking he's Mr. Tough Guy, and he went way too extreme and way too aggressive. I never got that feeling, though, of I completely understand why him. And I wonder if the locker room feels the same way. Because these players are listening and they talk. Nick Sirianni was asked about that. He talked to Carson Wentz. They even spoke with the offensive coordinator. They talked to Jalen Hurts. But it's interesting because one of the big standouts for me was the talk about connection, wanting to love each other. You play hard for each other when you love each other a little bit more. So he values, being that team and loving one another, be a family. And that's cool. I can rock with that. But I wonder if because that's the mentality and that's what they want to establish from the jump, if these phone calls and these discussions is more about, hey, Carson, what do you like to do when you're not playing football? Hey, Carson, how's your wife? Hey, Carson, how's life being a father? What's it like having a child? More of a relationship thing of let's just try and learn one another and less football. It seems hard to imagine, right, considering what's going on here in the storyline behind the quarterback controversy. But since he stressed that so much from the beginning about the family-like feel and the connection between one another, something tells me that's probably the way they handled it when they first initially met the players or spoke to the players, whichever it was, whether it was via Zoom or actually meeting or speaking on the phone, whatever. But it had to have been more of a common conversation, I would imagine. They waited so damn long for this press conference, and this is what we got. For them to wait 8-9 days and to get a lot of I don't knows, it bothers me. The point of you waiting was to get more information, to hire your coaching staff, and to prep him to answer some of these questions. You knew the Wentz one was coming. And for him to say, I haven't thought about it yet, that's not savvy enough for me. You got to be able to think on your feet. And I hope this isn't a defining moment where I look back and go, oh, this is just like Doug Peterson. Because Doug Peterson couldn't think on his feet. Now, I'm not demanding the guy to stand up there and tell us who's going to be the starting quarterback. But I think you got to give us more than I haven't thought about it yet. You haven't thought about it yet. Tell me what coach takes the Eagles head coaching job and doesn't think about the number one question around the entire league. Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson are the biggest storylines in the entire National Football League, not just the Philadelphia Eagles. The entire league. And since the league dominates sports, you could argue one of the biggest questions in all of American sports today. And you haven't thought about it yet. Once again, I'm not asking for you to give me a full-on answer. But how about something along the lines of, look, I'm really excited to work with Carson Wentz. I think he's a tremendous player. He was an MVP of the league before he went down in 2017. I can't wait to work with him every single day. And I think Jalen Hurts has a fantastic skill set, as you all saw last season as well. So I'm super excited to get out on the football field with these two men, and we'll see how it all plays out. Just something like that. You know what? We'll see how it all plays out. Might get nitpicked and then might get tweeted around, oh, they didn't commit to Carson Wentz. Whatever. I didn't think about it yet is totally unacceptable. But give us more of a cliche answer where you walk the line a bit more. Give us a little bit more substance. Oh, man, I've watched Carson Wentz play on tape, and it's outstanding. If we continue to work hard, if we continue to grind day in and day out, we can get Carson Wentz back to where he was in 2017, and this can be truly special. Oh, I love Carson Wentz. He's a fantastic player, fantastic young man. Can't wait to get my hands on him. I love working with the quarterback position. We'll get into training camp. How about something like this? We'll get into training camp. When we get into training camp, we're going to battle every position. Quarterback, left tackle, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. We're all going to battle. We're all going to compete. I can't wait for training camp. Give us a little more juice. We were sold that this guy had some energy. That was a big, big description of him. Younger guy with some energy. He also said he didn't watch film. I mean, that's embarrassing statements. That's I can't think on my feet type statements. But I do want to defend him a little bit. So on Twitter, Andrew Walker, who covers the Indianapolis Colts, he writes for, where does he write right now? He just says writer for the Colts. Okay, that's his bio on Twitter. But he put up this clip. It's 45 seconds long, and it's from a Colts production series, Behind the Colts. Now, listen to him speak to the locker room, because it's totally different than what we saw. So here it is.
One thing I took away from practice today, didn't start great. And as you guys know, I mean, I was on you guys pretty good. And I thought we handled adversity excellent. We handled adversity excellent, right? And guys, we know that happens so many times during the season, right? A drive stalls out. Another drive stalls out. Another drive stalls out. And then we got to go, right? And it takes somebody making a play. It takes somebody making a play and handling the adversity that you're going through to take us out of the rut. And Jacoby made a hell of a throw to Chester. Chester ran a hell of a route, and the protection was perfect, right? The whole thing was beautiful. And the next period, right, we started really fast.
Now, that's a totally different vibe, right? That's strong. That's fully aware of the surroundings. That's being proper in the locker room. Like, that's solid. That is a very good message that does not really relate whatsoever to what we saw in front of 50 people, 60 people that he had no clue about. He's going from Indianapolis and being an offensive coordinator. You don't have the same type of media coverage. People don't care as much. You're stepping into the Philadelphia spotlight. This isn't Kansas City where he was before or LA where he was before. This is Philadelphia. So I'm not going to honestly just flat out insanely destroy him just because of the stutters and the lips moving a little bit fast and quivering and getting nervous. That's called being a human being. That's called being natural. As much as we want to criticize Doug Peterson, and we deserve to, those players loved him. His message was loud. His voice was insanely respected from all of those players. So I just want to put that in perspective. And when I heard that clip out of Nick Sirianni, I was a little bit more optimistic because that's him in the natural habitat. That's him where it matters most. And at the end of the day, that is what is more important. You won't remember this press conference when you're 4, 5, 6, 7 games into the season and you're nitpicking the game plan and you're looking at this new coaching staff as a whole and you're watching Carson Wentz. You're not. You're worried about what's happening on the play. Does anyone even remember Doug Peterson's first presser? No. No, I actually went back and listened to it because I was so curious if it somewhat told the message of what we were going to see in press conferences down the line, and it did. It did. He came in with a suit on, with this green tie. I'm laughing to myself, going, really? This is Doug P on day one. I'm trying to look fresh. But it did tell the story on what we were going to get for 5 years when it came to pressers. And if this is what Nick Sirianni is, then so be it. I think he'll get more comfortable, though. You could tell when football questions were asked, he got into a rhythm. Whether it was Jonathan Gannon or the quarterback's coach Brian Johnson. When he was asked about questions he knew about, he was able to really go into detail. And you could see that his brain was spinning with good football knowledge. When he was asked questions that he was informed not to answer, that's where I think he was thinking too much and he was trying to dance around the questions, and then it didn't go, obviously, as smooth as he wanted to, but he would try and not give out any sort of info on Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts, and he would try and hide things, and I think that's where his brain was telling him, uh-oh, don't say this, or uh-oh, don't say that, and that's when he started fumbling all over his words. What we didn't need was Jeffrey Lurie speaking for 16 damn minutes. Are you serious, Lurie? Come on. You didn't even take one question either. How about this? Jeff Mosher texted me during the presser, and he's like, really? No Jeffrey Lurie? And I thought the same damn thing. And he shot over some questions that he would have loved to ask Lurie. And I'm like, well, this would have been great information. Why such a late addition? Why was Nick Sirianni added late to your list? Why Nick Sirianni over Josh McDaniels? What separated the two? How did you eliminate your 25-person list to about a 10-person list? And these are all just such great questions that I would have loved for him to answer, or have Howie Roseman in the mix. We needed to hear more from everyone involved. This is a big-time decision. This is a franchise-changing move. And then you're going to give us such limited time with Sirianni. I think there's a correlation between Lurie going so long. He was trying to take away time from Sirianni so they can say, oh, well, the whole pressure was X amount of time. Yeah, well, you took up the first 16 damn minutes with this brutal nonsense of you babbling along. And I hate to say it, but come on, Sirianni. Like, I respect you want to thank this guy, that guy, this woman, that woman. We don't care about all those people. We want to get the answers. We want to start asking you questions, and we're gonna keep demanding those questions. That's part of the gig. That's part of the job. But we don't want to hear about the 35,000 people you want to thank. I'm cool with coach organization, Lurie. I'm cool with family, wife, kids, and then that's it. Let's move on. Little too long there. And then the opening statement, he went with these core values, and I'm not against what he was saying with his core values, right? Fundamentals, and you want to keep drilling a play over and over and over again. He even brought up Villanova and the overtime or the overtime game-winning shot in that national championship game with Chris Jenkins. Drill the plays, drill the plays. I understand what he was trying to say. It felt very cliche-ish, though. You know, like, yeah, obviously fundamentals is something that you want to coach. Being a smart football team is something that you want to coach. What was the line that he said? First part of being a smart football team is knowing what to do. That was his first statement. And once he started getting into the being a smart football team, that was his first statement. It's like, we probably could have done a little bit better than that one, don't you think? All right, I have some audio cuts from the presser I want to get into. So he talked here. We'll start with a little bit of some positive stuff. Adapting to player strengths. Because, hey, there was some, outside of the awkwardness, there was some things here and there tiny sprinkled in that I'll try and grab out of this. So here we go. Nick Sirianni on good coaches adapting to player strengths. Any day now.
The sign of a good coach that you're going to change based off of your personnel, right? We have a certain personnel in place. We're going to figure out what they can do well and how and what their strengths are, and we're going to play to their strengths. And we're going to try to keep them out of situations that they don't excel well at.
All right, so that's something that we have been talking about with Doug Peterson. If Carson Wentz is fantastic rolling out of the pocket to the right, let's roll him out of the pocket and design for that to happen. If you have Miles Sanders, you don't run him 6 times in a football game. Pound the rock. Jalen Reagor, if he's not vertically just destroying guys like maybe we thought or we were sold based off of how fast of a player he was that it was going to happen, and maybe that's not happening in year one, okay, let's scheme him open. Let's get him in space. Let's get the football in his hands and allow him to use his legs and use his versatility to maybe break out for 40, 50 yards downfield. Let's get Dallas Goedert going. Hey, let's maybe utilize that screen game more. Let's put players in great positions to succeed, and he actually discussed a little bit of that and said there would be multiple dimensions with the offense based on this talent. Like, that's a positive sign. That's something that I'm really intrigued on when it comes to how is he going to use this offense differently than Doug Peterson. What is his offense going to look like? And we kind of went through this with Jacoby Brissett, Andrew Luck, Phillip Rivers. He had multiple different quarterbacks and different styles of quarterbacks, and they were able to get the most out of that offense for what it was. So let's see what he can do with these players and how it'll look different and how it'll change from years past. Doug Peterson and this offense, it ranked way too low in, well, I guess I should say it ranked too high, ranked too low, ranked too high, ranked too low, ranked too high, ranked too low. My point is, way too many verticals. Worse in the league. Or most in the league. Most verticals in the league. With an offensive line that's banged up, with a quarterback that's not seeing the field well enough, no shit you were going to get the results that you got. So that's something that I'm seriously focusing on. And he was asked about calling the plays, and I thought this was interesting. He is going to call the plays, which is not shocking, but he did go into detail a little bit about how it was discussed that maybe he would just be the CEO. As if he wouldn't call plays, he would oversee the entire team, and he would be more of just a leader overseeing everything. So that was on the table, but ultimately they thought it would be a good idea to go with calling the plays. And I'm not against that. That's normal. Andy Reid, Doug Peterson. That's kind of how it goes. You get your nod. If you weren't really a play caller before, you get your nod and then you go. But he does seem more willing to be open to other ideas. And let's be realistic. This is exactly what Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie wanted. It feels puppetish. So that's kind of what they were going for, and it's what they got. All right, so he has no answer to the starting quarterback question.
That's something that we have to look and evaluate, and I'm not ready to say that either way yet. We're just evaluating our players, evaluating every position, and every position, right? We don't know any of these guys really yet from what we've seen on tape so far, because we haven't watched any. So every position that is going to be evaluated, and every position is going to be, open.
Okay. So it's clear that he was going for the concept that I was discussing a little bit earlier in the show. But he stumbles. He stumbles, first off, with all the uhs and ahs and uhs. It makes it a lot worse. But he stumbles when he says, well, because we haven't watched any tape yet. You've been here for how many days? What do you mean you haven't watched any tape yet? It's a flat-out lie. It's not like I'm believing him. Anyone in their right mind would do that. But here's my question. You go in for an interview, and you're sitting in front of Jeffrey Lurie to be a head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Is that how he's speaking? Or is he calmer? Or is it different? I know that's not necessarily being in front of everyone and being public speaking and speaking in front of an entire Philadelphia Eagles fan base. See, it's more than just the 50, 60 reporters on the Zoom call. He knows this is getting blasted out on Eagles Twitter. He knows there's going to be a reaction. He knows about how passionate we are. So it's not just about who's in the Zoom and how many theoretical hands are raised in that Zoom call. It's more than that. But I would imagine you're going to be just as nervous walking into Jeffrey Lurie's office speaking. So how did things change? How was he that much in more of a calmer mode talking to Howie and Jeffrey Lurie? It's just not adding up to me. It's not making much sense. It's crazy. And I feel bad. I do. Because I feel I'm starting to judge him more than I should. I had a gut feeling in the shower, and everybody knows shower thoughts are the most important thoughts. That's where you get your best thinking done. So this is the weirdest sentence I'm about to say, but I was in the shower thinking of Nick Sirianni. So weird. So weird to say. But my gut was telling me this isn't right. My gut was telling me something's off here. And I really hope I'm wrong, and I really hope he proves me wrong. And once again, I'm not writing him off. But if you just ask me my first initial gut feeling, I can't help that I'm going to have emotions towards this, and I'm going to have a general vibe in my stomach. And the first one, which can be wrong, but my first one is, this guy's not a true big-time leader. Might be a good football mind, might be a good assistant coach, a good offensive coordinator to a nice head coach. Does he scream legit, insane head coach, leader of men? He doesn't. But I always say, Doug Peterson sure didn't either. And there's no denying that. All right, let me tell you about my friends over at DraftKings. The 55th Super Bowl is this weekend. 55, and a game this big deserves a big prize, not just some trophy. And DraftKings, the official daily fantasy sports partner of Super Bowl 55, has up to $55 million in total prizes up for grabs with their Super Bowl prediction pool. How's that for big? All you have to do to get your share of these huge prizes is enter DraftKings' free Super Bowl prediction challenge. Once you submit your picks, you will get a free instant prize up to $25,000. The top prize is $1 million. Download the app, enter the free prediction challenge, answer questions like who will score last, and boom, get ready to make it rain. Download the DraftKings app now and use promo code Brodes to enter the free $55 million Super Bowl prediction challenge. Everyone gets an instant prize up to $25,000 just for playing. So use promo code Brodes now and enter the free $55 million Super Bowl challenge. Only at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of Super Bowl 55. Terms, conditions, and eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Someone I'm a little nervous about is Steichen, the offensive coordinator from Los Angeles. A lot of people were excited to get rid of him when he left town. Now, to be fair, a lot of people wanted Andy Reid out. A lot of people want a lot of people out of town just based off of emotion. So just because a fan base wants to run someone out of town, that doesn't necessarily mean that is a realistic or a great idea for that franchise. With that being said, though, I do have some concerns with Steichen, the offensive coordinator. Let's hear what Nick Sirianni had to say about him.
I know Shane thinks about the game the way I think about the game. And Shane is a phenomenal offensive mind that thinks about the game like the way I do. And it's almost like with Shane and I, and Shane's done a great job. His resume speaks for itself. He's always gotten the best out of his quarterbacks. Did a great job with Phillip Rivers. Did a great job with Justin Herbert this year. So obviously Shane and I have communicated with each other through this past year of bouncing ideas off of each other.
I wonder how much of the Justin Herbert effect had to do with their decision on maybe bringing someone in like Steichen. Hey, look what he did in L.A. Look what happened. They got thrown a bone. They get Justin Herbert in there. Like, when I say bone, like a weird situation, right? I mean, remember what happened with Tyrod Taylor? What in the world? And then, boom, here comes Justin Herbert onto the scene, and they started flowing, they started flying, and he was playing fantastic. So I wonder how much they look at Justin Herbert and go, is there something to this when it comes to Carson Wentz? Can we fix Carson Wentz, bring in a guy who has a lot to say with what happened in L.A. to turn Justin Herbert into the nice player and the intriguing player that everybody was watching every single week? And speaking of Carson Wentz, Brian Johnson, that's a name that he has a great college resume. He worked with a ton of fantastic quarterbacks, whether it's Trask in Florida, Dak Prescott, you name it. Very intriguing resume. Nick Sirianni on Brian Johnson.
Brian came in here and interviewed with us and just did a phenomenal job. He showed why at a young age he was the offensive coordinator for the Florida Gators. Just a really sharp guy who really believed all the things that I spelled out here with the core values. He just really believed in those things, and he knew how he was going to intertwine that into coaching.
Not so much from the coach there. It wasn't as juicy as I would have hopefully liked to thought it would go into when it comes to details on Brian Johnson. But he is someone that I think a lot of beat reporters, a lot of guys who cover the team, and a lot of fans see that resume, and it definitely sparks a bit of a light bulb. Younger guy as well. Everyone's young. And there is some concern to the youth. I wish they would have grabbed one veteran guy to somewhat rely on. All youth, it's almost as if if things spiral out of control early, there's no coming back. If you start out 0-2, 0-3, or 1-4, there's no true professional who's been there for a long period of time, maybe had a head coach experience. There's no one to lean on, and I think that that's important for such a young staff. So, yeah, there's something that makes me a bit nervous. I wish there was a Marvin Lewis, a Jim Caldwell, hell, even an Anthony Lynn, although you can be pissed off with what he did with timeouts and clock management in the past. There's still something to be said about being a head coach in this league. I wish they did that. But going back to Brian Johnson, his resume really does speak for itself, and there are some nervous just about the age. I kind of lean towards hold on a second, you could have found a diamond here. This could have been a really great positive for this franchise. By the way, speaking of quarterbacks, Coach, how about Press Taylor joining Frank Reich? So it's like, Frank Reich must have saw something in Press Taylor, so he will be joining the Indianapolis Colts and that staff. But I guess they got to do something considering the whole entire damn staff went over to Philadelphia. It's like Sirianni just started picking all around and grabbing the pieces all around Indianapolis. Well, because it's not as if he knows a bunch of people throughout the league at this point. He also went on to speak about Jonathan Gannon, who was a big name. He was a hot item. He was a hot candidate for a lot of teams. So, something just to look at from a fan perspective on what's Jonathan Gannon going to bring when it comes to defensive philosophy. Will you see more blitz? Will you see more of the style that's in today's era of football? Jim Schwartz, a little old school, a little different, wouldn't bring heavy blitz. I think the defense has changed. A lot of disguises, a lot of confusing the quarterback, a lot more pressure involved, not just from your front four. So what does that mean when it comes to building your roster? when you have the 6th pick, are you definitely looking offense? Are you looking wide receiver? Can you possibly bring in Surtain, who would solidify outside cornerback? So you'd have Darius Slay and Surtain. You'd have like a legitimate game-changing young player on defense because you don't really have that. People bring up Parsons. I don't think you're going to do that at 6. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you're going to do that at 6. And don't forget, you have Davion Taylor, who you drafted in the 3rd round last year. Is this the year where you kind of rock with him a bit more? Not saying that he compares whatsoever to what Micah Parsons brings to the table, because he can be a stud. He can play all over the place. Versatility is not even the way to describe him. You want to talk about playing a bunch of different positions? Yeah, he can do a ton. He is a game-changing defensive type player. But I almost feel they lean more towards that outside corner than they do linebacker, just basing it off of the history of this franchise. But once again, you're bringing in a totally different regime. Who has all the say, though? It still seems like the 2 guys up top. And that brings me to one of the most confusing statements of the presser, which is kind of a shame on me to bring it up this late. But he was asked about Howie Roseman and the 53-man roster. And he said, Howie Roseman has say on the 53-man roster. I believe that I do with the game day roster. You believe? It's like they didn't have that conversation. Does he have say? Are they giving him the power to make the decision on game day? Are they lying? Was that one of the things they prepped him for? Hey, just say on game day you do have the power. But he probably wouldn't start that statement out with I believe if that was the case. So it's like he just anticipates that he gets it. He just assumes he does because most coaches do. Well, guess what? Most coaches don't have to work under Howie Roseman. Most coaches don't have a meddling owner right now like Jeffrey Lurie. So I wouldn't put it past him if that was something that slipped or something that gets rediscussed behind closed doors between Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni. But yeah, that slipped. That was an uncomfortable moment. Oh, yeah, I believe. Oh, yeah, you believe? Well, you better double check with your sources. You better double check with the guys upstairs. That's one of the problems we have here. You have the guys who want to call all the shots, way too invested. And it sucks. It really does. You know, they released a video on Eagles.com, PhiladelphiaEagles.com, a day before the presser. And it was with Dave Spadaro. And it just felt so fake. And I talked about how he mentioned not watching film and not watching Carson Wentz, this and that. But in that video a day before that came out, oh, yeah, I love this. I love what I've seen out of these guys. I've been watching these guys. So it doesn't add up. And that's where he wasn't really thinking on his feet very well. And the nervousness definitely caught up to him. But the Dave Spadaro one, if you buy anything that was said, it was almost like that was practice. It was scripted, say what they want you to say, very scripted, very fake. Not that Nick Sirianni is fake, but the whole production around it was so, hey guys, this is your coach, as if we're supposed to buy that nonsense. You can edit what you want out. You can cut out what you want to. If you didn't like the answer, you can say, hey, hold on a second, let's reset, let's restart. Hey, make sure you beef up Carson Wentz a bit more. Hey, beef up the tight ends more. Hey, beef up this and that. Put a little bit more emphasis on this. Bring a little more energy to the table. That's a little dry. So it was a practice run. And I'm not against having a practice run for a fresh coach who is entering the spotlight for the first time in a big market, in a big city. But I'm just saying, I don't think I could take away much from that because you know that it was supposed to be something to try and brainwash some. There'll be fans that eat up that Dave Spadaro interview. I don't know why. I think it's pretty clear what the message is trying to be. Let's make the head coach look as great as humanly possible because we have the power to put it out there the way that we want. We can present it the way that we want to. So if you mess up, if it's not so smooth, it's all right. We can hit the refresh button, and from there, hey, we'll kind of reset things, and we'll reset how it's being displayed. So I didn't really put a lot of stock into it, but I did listen because it was so damn long since we heard anything about the coach. I just wanted to hear his tone. I wanted to hear his message. I wanted to read his body language, and sadly, I didn't get what I wanted. I got a way underwhelming press conference. Way too underwhelming. And when you think about it, this was them prepping him. You think they didn't prep him? If your statement afterwards was, wow, I can't believe they didn't prep him better. No, they did. That was them prepping him. That was the PR team and everyone coming together saying, This is what you need to know. This is the information you got to give. These are the questions you got to bounce around, and these are the questions you should answer, and answer firmly. That was him being prepped. And I guess you could make the argument that that is the scary thing. What else is the scary thing is Sirianni on Howie Roseman and his role in building this roster. Come on. Why so many delays?
Howie has final say over the 53. I believe I have the say over the 47 on the game, that what we, on game day, of what we need to go through the game and get into the game and the pieces that we need. As far as picking the players and helping pick the players, I really look forward to working with Howie.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You'll regret those comments. But did you hear at the beginning? Oh, I believe I do. Yeah, well, guess what? Good luck. Good luck. I feel bad. I really do. I feel bad. I don't want to feel this way. I feel like I'm rushing to, not to like a full-on assessment on how I feel with the guy, but there's no doubt that is going to impact how I feel. It just looked like the moment was a little big for the guy. And, you bring in this young, smart, energetic coach that we were informed about. I didn't get that. I need to see that. I want to see that energy. It wasn't really about, oh, what did he tell me about Wentz? Or, oh, what did he tell me about this? Like, yeah, I'm going to want a better answer than he gave me, but it was more about the message, the demeanor, the body language, the tone, the vibe, the energy, just like how he was speaking, how he was addressing the media, how it came out from his standpoint. That's what I needed to see. And it was a big swing and a miss. But let's all preface this by saying you cannot say that this guy flat out can't coach just because he's not the greatest public speaker. That's unfair. That's totally unfair. You got to give him a chance. I saw that cut from inside the Colts and inside the locker room and him speaking. I saw a different Nick Sirianni. And that Nick Sirianni, that's way more important than the one that speaks to me, Jeff McClain, Reuben Frank, or Zach Berman, or Rob Motti, or John McMullen. Anyone. It doesn't matter. It matters how he speaks to the team in the room. But I hope, just like I'm coming to a little bit of a judgment, little bit. I hope it's not the same way for some of these guys in the locker room that are going, wow, this guy over Deuce, really? You think this guy's going to get us going more than Deuce? Really? I don't know if I saw a leader of men. I don't know if I saw that. We'll see, though. Nick Sirianni. It'll never feel right. The name just will never flow properly. Whew. All right, the Nick Sirianni era has begun. Thank you guys all so much for listening to this episode. Before I let you guys go, do not forget about my friends over at Orbit Energy and Power. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, they are home to your solar experts in residential and commercial projects. Their solar program eliminates your electric bill completely. They offer flexible financing solutions such as $0 down. They provide water purification systems, backup energy services, battery storage, and more. So check out their information all down below. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.